You know what I hate most about humans? They never make sense. Here I am, Grix 9 of the Welfare and Observation Corps. Supposedly one of the most advanced intelligence-gathering species in this spiral arm of the galaxy. And I cannot figure out why Command assigned the scrawniest, most pathetic-looking human female to the front lines of a war zone. Her name is Maya Korr, 5 feet, 2 inches of what appears to be poorly assembled biological matter. Arms like twigs, legs that look like they might snap if she walked too fast. The kind of human that makes you wonder how their species ever crawled out of their planetary gravity well, let alone conquered half the known systems. And yet here she stands in the staging area of Firebase Delta 7, surrounded by soldiers who could probably bench press a hover tank, looking like she might blow away in a strong breeze. This has to be some kind of joke, mutters Lieutenant Breck, my Thorgenian partner in this surveillance mission. His 4 eyes scan Maya with obvious disdain. Command wants us to observe combat effectiveness, and they send us that. I have to agree. When the hegemony brass told us we were being embedded with a special operations unit to study human combat adaptability, I expected something more intimidating. These humans have been giving our combined forces fits for 3 standard cycles now. Every time we think we have them figured out, they pull some ridiculous stunt that defies logic, physics, or basic military doctrine. But this Maya Korr, she looks like she couldn't win a fight against a particularly aggressive houseplant. Maybe she is their communications specialist, Brack suggests, watching as Maya checks something on a small device strapped to her wrist. Or what do humans call it? Their mascot. The staging area buzzes with pre-mission activity. Soldiers check weapons, armor, tactical gear. The usual symphony of military preparation. Maya stands apart from it all, wearing standard combat fatigues that hang loose on her tiny frame. No visible weapons, no armor worth mentioning, just a weird collection of small cylinders attached to her belt and what looks like a breathing apparatus around her neck. Attention, people. The voice belongs to Captain Jake Morrison, the unit commander. Big, broad-shouldered, exactly what you would expect from a human military leader. Intel reports Krillian advanced scouts have established a forward position in Sector 77 Alpha. Our job is simple. Go in, clear them out, establish observation post, standard seek and destroy. The soldiers respond with various grunts and confirmations. Maya just nods slightly, like someone confirming a dinner reservation. Korr, Morrison calls out. You are good to go? Always am, Cap, she replies. Her voice is soft, almost musical. Nothing intimidating about it whatsoever. Breck leans closer to me. I give her 30 seconds once the shooting starts. I am inclined to agree, except for one thing that has been bothering me since we arrived. Every other soldier in this unit treats Maya Korr with a very specific kind of respect. Not the patronizing care you might show to a beloved mascot or communications specialist. No, this is something else entirely. It is the way they give her space. The way conversations quiet when she walks by. The way Lieutenant Torres, a decorated combat veteran with scars covering half his face, actually stepped aside when she passed him earlier. These are not the behaviors of soldiers protecting a weak link. These are the behaviors of soldiers who have seen something that changed their perspective on what constitutes dangerous. Move out! Morrison shouts. The transport vehicles rumble to life. 2 heavy assault carriers designed to punch through enemy lines and deliver their cargo of very angry humans to wherever the shooting needs to happen. Maya climbs into the second vehicle with 5 other soldiers. She sits quietly in the corner, hands folded in her lap like a schoolchild on a field trip. This is going to be painful to watch, Brack mutters as our stealth observation pod follows at a discreet distance. The ride to Sector 77 Alpha takes 43 minutes through terrain that can only be described as aggressively hostile. Rocky canyons, dense metallic forests, and air thick enough to chew, perfect Krillian territory. The enemy loves places where visibility is poor and atmospheric conditions interfere with most targeting systems. Approaching the drop zone, comes Morrison's voice over the comm. Intelligence estimates 12 to 15 hostiles entrenched in elevated positions. Standard Krillian defensive formation. Korvax, you are clear to engage as needed. Clear to engage. I lean forward in my observation seat. What exactly is this tiny human supposed to engage with? Harsh language? The carriers reach the designated coordinates and disgorge their human cargo. Soldiers spread out in textbook formation, weapons ready, moving with the practiced efficiency that has made human infantry such a galactic headache for the past few years. Maya exits last. She stands for a moment completely still, head tilted slightly like she is listening to something the rest of us cannot hear. Then she reaches for one of those small cylinders on her belt. Contact front. Someone shouts. Krillian energy signatures, bearing 270. The forest erupts in weapons fire. Bright lances of Krillian plasma slice through the air while humans respond with their typical mixture of projectile weapons and explosive enthusiasm. The sound is deafening, even through our observation pod's audio dampeners. And in the middle of this chaos, Maya Korr uncaps her little cylinder and takes a deep breath. What is she doing? Brack demands. Is she smelling something? The cylinder in her hand begins to emit a faint blue glow. Maya holds it up to her lips, exhales slowly, and the blue glow spreads outward like smoke. Except smoke does not behave like this. This, whatever it is, moves with purpose. It flows against the natural air currents, defying every law of atmospheric dynamics I know. That is not possible, I whisper. The blue substance, gas, vapor? I have no idea what to call it, spreads through the combat zone with impossible precision. It flows around the human soldiers without affecting them, but when it reaches the Krillian position, the screaming starts. Krillian voices, normally deep and resonant, climb to frequencies that make my audio equipment crackle. Through our enhanced optics, I watch as enemy soldiers stumble out of their concealed positions, clawing at their respiratory systems, their movements becoming erratic and desperate. What did she do to them? Brack's voice is barely a whisper. Maya caps the cylinder and selects another. This one glows green. She repeats the process. Breath in, breath out, and suddenly there is another impossible cloud spreading through the battlefield. But this one moves differently. Instead of flowing horizontally, it rises, forming distinct shapes in the air above the Krillian positions. Shapes that look suspiciously like targeting markers. Torres. Kim, you have clear shots on elevated positions Alpha through Delta, Maya says into her comm, her voice calm as if she is commenting on the weather. The human snipers do not hesitate. 4 perfect shots, 4 Krillian fighters eliminated. The remaining enemies, still affected by whatever the blue substance did to them, break formation and attempt to retreat. Maya uncaps a third cylinder. This one does not glow. Instead, when she breathes into it, the air around her begins to shimmer like heat distortion. She raises her hand, points toward the fleeing Krillians. The wind changes. Not gradually, not naturally, instantly and dramatically, as if someone has redirected the planet's atmospheric flow with the flip of a switch. The Krillian soldiers, already struggling with respiratory distress, find themselves fighting against sudden gusts that seem determined to knock them off their feet and herd them directly into human firing lines. Impossible, I breathe. Atmospheric manipulation requires massive industrial equipment. Entire installations dedicated to weather control. You cannot just breathe and change how air moves. But Maya Korr apparently never got that memo. She stands there small and fragile looking, orchestrating wind patterns like a conductor leading a symphony orchestra. The Krillian retreat turns into a rout as soldiers find themselves pushed by invisible hands directly into prepared human positions. The battle is over in less than 10 minutes. What should have been a difficult engagement against entrenched enemies in hostile terrain becomes a one-sided demonstration of human tactical superiority. And it all came down to one tiny woman who apparently keeps the atmosphere itself in little bottles on her belt. Sector clear, Morrison reports. Establishing observation post as planned. 0 casualties, 12 confirmed enemy eliminations. Korvax, nice work as usual. Just another day at the office, Cap, Maya replies, already walking toward the designated observation point like nothing unusual happened. Rake and I sit in stunned silence for several long moments, watching the humans set up their forward position with casual efficiency. Finally, my partner finds his voice. We need to report this immediately. Command has to know that humans have developed atmospheric manipulation technology. I am not so sure it is technology. Technology I understand. Technology follows rules, requires power sources, generates detectable energy signatures. What Maya Korr just did, there were no energy readings, no technological emissions, nothing that would register on any scanner we have. Look at the cylinders, I tell Brack, adjusting our observation equipment for maximum magnification. The small containers Maya used are completely unremarkable. No visible technology, no power cells, no complex engineering. They look like, well, like bottles. Simple, primitive containers that a pre-industrial civilization might use to store liquids or gases. She is not using technology. I realize, she is using the air itself. Somehow she can alter atmospheric composition and behavior without any external tools or power sources. That is impossible. Atmospheric manipulation requires… I know what it requires. I snap. I have studied atmospheric engineering for half my lifespan. But what she just did cannot be explained by any scientific principles I understand. The implications are staggering. If humans have developed biological atmospheric manipulation abilities, if they can literally weaponize the air around them without technological assistance, every tactical assumption the hegemony has made about human capabilities needs to be reconsidered. We need more data, I decide. Full analysis of her techniques, detailed observations of equipment. If that is what those cylinders actually are, and we need to determine if this Maya Korr is unique or if there are others like her. As if summoned by my words, Maya looks directly at our concealed observation position. For a moment, her eyes seem to meet mine through all our stealth technology and optical camouflage. She smiles slightly, raises one of those innocuous cylinders in what might be a greeting, and mouths something I cannot quite read. Then she returns to helping establish the observation post, leaving me with the unsettling feeling that our supposedly covert surveillance mission is not nearly as covert as we thought. Break, I say slowly. I think we might be in over our heads here. My partner does not respond immediately. He is too busy staring at the tactical display where our sensors are trying and failing to analyze the atmospheric anomalies Maya created. Every reading comes back as untinal or data insufficient. You know what bothers me most? He finally says. What? She used 3 different techniques just now. 3 completely different ways of manipulating atmospheric conditions. Which means she probably has more. How many more cylinders does she have on that belt? What else can she do with them? I count the containers attached to Maya's equipment harness. 12 total. She used 3. That leaves 9 unknowns. 9 potential atmospheric weapons or tools or whatever the hell they actually are. And another thing, Brake continues. Did you notice how the other soldiers reacted? Or rather, how they did not react? Nobody seemed surprised by what she did. No one stared or commented or acted like they had just witnessed something impossible. This is normal for them. He is right, and that realization chills me more than watching Maya weaponize the wind. If atmospheric manipulation is standard operating procedure for human special forces, if they have developed these abilities to the point where soldiers treat them as routine battlefield tools, Command is not going to believe our initial report. I mutter. Then we better gather enough evidence to make them believe, Brack replies. Because if Maya Korr represents the new standard for human combat capabilities, the entire strategic balance of this war just shifted. Through our observation equipment, I watch Maya help set up defensive perimeters with the same casual efficiency she used to eliminate an entire Krillian squad. She moves quietly, speaks softly, and gives no indication that she just redefined what atmospheric warfare looks like. The humans finish establishing their observation post within 2 hours. Standard procedure calls for them to hold the position for at least 3 standard days, conducting reconnaissance and monitoring enemy movement patterns. Which means Brack and I have 3 days to figure out how Maya Korr does what she does, and whether her abilities represent an isolated anomaly or the tip of a very large, very dangerous iceberg. Motion sensors are picking up movement, Morrison announces. Bearing 090, approximately 2 kilometers out. Multiple contacts, moving in formation. The soldiers immediately shift into defensive positions. Maya, however, remains where she is, standing near the center of their perimeter with her head tilted in that peculiar listening pose. Size of the force? Torres asks. Scanning. Looks like a full Krillian assault company. 40, maybe 50 hostiles with heavy support weapons. They are moving fast, probably trying to retake this position before we can establish proper defenses. Brake and I exchange glances. A 50-strong Krillian assault company represents serious firepower. Even with defensive advantages, 12 human soldiers should be looking at very unfavorable odds. Maya uncaps 2 cylinders simultaneously. Cancel that assessment, she says calmly. Give me 15 minutes. What happens next redefines everything I thought I knew about atmospheric warfare. Maya breathes into both cylinders at once, creating streams of what looks like liquid light that spiral upward and outward with impossible grace. The air around the human position begins to shimmer and dance, distorting visual observation and creating interference patterns that would confuse most targeting systems. But that is just the opening act. She selects a 4th cylinder, then a 5th. Each one produces different atmospheric effects, sudden pressure differentials that create walls of compressed air, temperature variations that generate localized weather patterns, and something that makes the oxygen itself seem to thicken and pulse with its own rhythm. Sensors are going crazy, Torres reports. Atmospheric readings are all over the place. It is like the weather is having a seizure. Maya nods, selecting yet another cylinder. That is the point. Let them try to target what they cannot see, breathe, or understand. The approaching Krillian force reaches the outer edge of Maya's atmospheric manipulation zone, and chaos immediately ensues. Through our enhanced optics, I watch as enemy soldiers stumble into walls of compressed air that knock them backward. Others find themselves struggling to breathe in pockets of altered atmospheric composition. Their formation breaks apart as visibility drops to nearly zero due to swirling mists that seem to move independently of any natural air currents. This is incredible, Brake whispers. She has turned the entire battlefield into a maze of atmospheric hazards. The Krillians cannot advance, cannot target effectively, and can barely maintain unit cohesion. But Maya is not finished. She uncaps her 7th cylinder, and this time, instead of breathing into it, she pours a small amount of its contents onto the ground at her feet. The earth begins to steam. Vapor rises from the point of contact, spreading outward in expanding rings. Wherever the vapor touches, the air itself becomes visible. Swirling currents and pressure differentials suddenly marked by faint trails of luminescent gas. She is making the atmospheric dynamics visible. I realize she can actually see how air moves and flows, and now she is sharing that vision with her team. The human soldiers adjust their positions based on the visible air currents, using Maya's atmospheric modifications to enhance their own defensive capabilities. They move with precision through areas where the air itself provides concealment or creates firing lanes that funnel enemies into predetermined kill zones. The Krillian assault becomes a masterclass in tactical atmospheric manipulation. Enemy soldiers find themselves herded by invisible forces, blinded by manufactured weather patterns, and systematically eliminated by human defenders who can see exactly how to use Maya's atmospheric modifications to their advantage. In less than 20 minutes, a 50-strong assault force is reduced to scattered survivors fleeing back toward their own lines. All clear, Morrison announces. Enemy force neutralized with minimal ammunition expenditure. Outstanding work, Korr. Maya caps her cylinders and returns them to her belt. Atmospheric conditions should return to normal within the hour, she reports. No residual effects. No environmental contamination. As if atmospheric warfare is something she does every day, which I am beginning to suspect it might be. Breck, I say quietly, we are not observing standard human military capabilities. We are witnessing something entirely new, something that changes every assumption about how warfare works in atmospheric environments. Agreed? But here is what really terrifies me. She still has 5 unused cylinders on her belt. 5 unknown atmospheric weapons or tools that we have not seen in action yet. I watch Maya settle down near the command post, pulling out what appears to be a simple field ration and eating with the calm satisfaction of someone who has just completed routine paperwork rather than revolutionary atmospheric combat. What kind of training produces someone like her? I wonder aloud. What kind of technology or knowledge allows a single individual to weaponize atmospheric conditions with such precision and control? More importantly, Brack adds, how many Maya cores do the humans have? Is she unique, or are there others? Are there entire units of atmospheric manipulation specialists? The questions pile up faster than answers, and each new observation raises the stakes higher. If Maya Korr represents a new class of human warrior, if atmospheric manipulation has become a standard component of their military doctrine, a soft chime from our communication system interrupts my speculation. Incoming priority message from Hegemony Command. Observation Team 77. This is Command. Report status and preliminary findings. I look at Brack, who just shrugs. How do you explain that everything we thought we knew about human military capabilities appears to be fundamentally wrong? Command, this is Observation Team 77. We have significant developments to report. Recommend immediate priority analysis of human atmospheric manipulation capabilities. Clarify atmospheric manipulation. 7-7. I glance at Maya, who has finished her field ration and is now examining her remaining cylinders with the thoughtful expression of someone planning her next move. Command, we have observed a single human soldier. Neutralized two separate Krillian forces using what appears to be biological atmospheric control. No detectable technology, no external power sources. She is literally weaponizing air composition and movement patterns. Several seconds of silence follow. 7-7. Confirm your last transmission. Did you report biological atmospheric manipulation? Confirmed, Command. Individual human designation Maya Korr has demonstrated the ability to alter atmospheric conditions, create targeted weather effects, and manipulate air currents without any detectable technological assistance. Another pause. Longer this time. 7-7. Maintain observation and gather detailed intelligence. Priority Alpha classification. Do not break cover under any circumstances. We need everything you can provide on this individual and her capabilities. The communication terminates, leaving Brack and me alone with the uncomfortable realization that we might be witnessing the emergence of an entirely new form of warfare. Well, Brack says finally, at least Command believes us. They believe us because they are probably seeing similar reports from other observation teams. I reply, which means Maya Korr is not unique. There are others. As if to punctuate my statement, Maya stands and walks to the perimeter of the human position. She uncaps one of her remaining cylinders, breathes into it briefly, and releases a small cloud of silver vapor that spreads outward in a perfect circle before dissipating. What was that? Brack asks. I have no idea. But I suspect we are about to find out. The silver vapor settles onto the ground around the human position, invisible to normal observation but clearly detectable by whatever senses Maya uses to monitor atmospheric conditions. She nods with satisfaction and returns to the command post. Perimeter early warning system is active. She reports to Morrison. Anything larger than a small animal that crosses the boundary will trigger atmospheric displacement alerts. She turned air molecules into a security system. She actually made the atmosphere itself into a detection grid. Brack, I whisper. I think we need to revise our assessment of human military capabilities. Again, how many times can we revise our assessment before we admit that we fundamentally do not understand what humans are capable of? It is a good question, and I do not have a good answer. Every time the hegemony thinks it has humans figured out, they demonstrate new abilities that shatter previous tactical assumptions. Maya Korr represents the latest evolution in human military adaptation, and the implications are staggering. But there is something else bothering me. Something about the way Maya operates, the casual precision of her atmospheric manipulation, the complete lack of technological apparatus required for her abilities. Brack, what if this is not technology at all? What if humans have developed actual biological atmospheric control? What if they are evolving? My partner stares at me for a long moment. Evolving? Into what? Into something that can survive and fight in any atmospheric condition. Something that can weaponize the very air around them. Something that makes every environmental advantage meaningless because they can simply change the environment to suit their needs. The thought is both fascinating and terrifying. If humans are developing biological atmospheric manipulation as an evolutionary adaptation to warfare, that would explain their success in so many different planetary environments. Breck muses. Their ability to operate effectively in atmospheric conditions that should be hostile or impossible for their baseline physiology, and it would mean that conventional atmospheric warfare tactics are useless against them. You cannot deny them air superiority if they can control the air itself. I watch Maya conduct what appears to be routine equipment maintenance, carefully examining each of her remaining cylinders and making notes on a small handheld device. Every movement is practiced, efficient, professional. She has done this before. I realize, many times, this is not experimental technology or newly developed capabilities. This is standard operating procedure for her. Which raises the final question, Breck says grimly. If Maya Korr represents standard human atmospheric manipulation capabilities, what do their elite specialists look like? What can their most advanced atmospheric warriors do? As if sensing our conversation, Maya looks up from her equipment maintenance and gazes directly at our concealed position. For the second time today, her eyes seem to meet mine through our stealth technology. This time, she definitely smiles. And this time, there is no mistaking the message she mouths. Hello there. Our supposedly covert observation mission has been compromised from the very beginning. Maya Korr has known we were watching all along. Breck, I say very quietly, I think we might be in more trouble than we realized. Why? Because if she has known we were here the entire time, then everything we just witnessed, every demonstration of atmospheric manipulation, every tactical technique, every impossible feat of biological air control was a performance, Breck finishes. A demonstration specifically for our benefit. Maya returns to her equipment maintenance, humming softly to herself as if she has not just revealed that our entire intelligence-gathering operation is dancing to her choreography. The question is, I continue, what was she trying to tell us? What message was she sending through this demonstration? Maybe, Breck suggests with growing unease, the message is that human atmospheric manipulation capabilities are so far beyond what we understand that she can afford to show us exactly what she can do. Confident that we still will not be able to counter it. That possibility chills me more than watching her weaponize the wind. If Maya Korr deliberately revealed her abilities because she knows they cannot be effectively countered, if she gave us a demonstration precisely because it will not help us develop defenses, we need to continue our observation, I decide. Everything we have seen so far might be just the beginning. If she was performing for us, then she might have more to show. Or, Breck adds ominously, she might be finished with the demonstration and ready to move on to more interactive forms of communication. As if summoned by his words, Maya stands and walks purposefully toward our position, not in the general direction, not toward the area where we might be concealed, directly toward our exact coordinates. She is coming this way, Breck whispers unnecessarily. Maya covers the distance between the human position and our hiding spot with casual confidence, never hesitating, never scanning for threats, moving like someone following a familiar path to a known destination. She stops exactly 10 meters from our concealed observation pod and sits down cross-legged on the ground. Then she uncaps one of her unused cylinders and holds it up so we can clearly see it through our optics. Good evening, gentlemen, she says in a voice just loud enough for our audio pickups to detect. I think it is time we had a proper conversation. You know what is worse than being caught spying on someone? Being caught spying on someone who has been putting on a show specifically for your benefit, and only now deciding to acknowledge your existence. Maya Korr sits 10 meters away from our supposedly invisible observation pod, holding one of her atmospheric manipulation cylinders like she is offering us tea. The casual way she detected our position through military-grade stealth technology suggests that either human sensory capabilities have undergone dramatic improvement, or atmospheric manipulation provides detection abilities we never considered. I know you can hear me, Maya continues, her voice carrying clearly through the evening air. Your audio pickups are quite good, by the way. Very impressive for equipment that small. Breck and I exchange panicked glances. Our observation pod is designed to be undetectable by any known scanning technology. The fact that Maya not only found us but can accurately assess our surveillance capabilities means human intelligence gathering has evolved far beyond hegemony estimates. She could be bluffing, Brack whispers. Maya tilts her head slightly. Your friend thinks I might be bluffing. Tell him that your pod is positioned at bearing 273 degrees, elevation angle 15 degrees above horizontal, distance exactly 9.7 meters from my current position. Also, your partner's name is Brack. Yours is Grix-9 and you are both members of the Veltheron Observation Corps. My blood turns to ice water. Not only does she know our exact position, she knows our identities and organizational affiliation. Information that should be classified at levels requiring council-level clearance to access. How? I breathe, knowing she will hear me. Atmospheric displacement analysis, Maya replies matter-of-factly. Every living being has a unique respiratory signature. Breathing patterns, lung capacity, metabolic gas exchange rates, even stress-induced chemical emissions. Once you know how to read atmospheric composition and movement, hiding becomes difficult. She stands and walks closer to our position, stopping just 3 meters away. At this distance I can see details that our long-range observation missed. Her equipment belt contains more than just the atmospheric manipulation cylinders. There are small devices I cannot identify. Instruments that look like they belong in a laboratory rather than on a battlefield. And what appears to be a miniature atmospheric analysis computer. The cylinders, Brack manages to ask. What are they exactly? Maya holds up the one in her hand, rotating it so we can see it clearly. It looks like a simple metal tube, perhaps 6 inches long and 1 inch in diameter. No visible technology, no complex engineering. Just a basic container with some kind of cap mechanism. Atmospheric samples, she explains, collected from different planets, different environments, different atmospheric conditions. Each one contains air from somewhere else, somewhere with unique properties that can be useful in the right tactical situation. That is impossible, I protest. You cannot simply bottle atmospheric conditions and release them elsewhere. Gas diffusion, pressure equalization, molecular behavior, the physics do not work that way. Maya smiles, and there is something almost predatory about the expression. You are thinking about this wrong. I am not releasing foreign atmospheric conditions into local environments. I am teaching local atmospheric conditions to behave like foreign ones. What does that mean? Watch, she says, uncapping the cylinder. Instead of breathing into it as she did during combat, she holds it out toward a nearby tree. A thin stream of what looks like ordinary air flows from the container toward the plant. The tree begins to change. Not dramatically, not obviously. But the leaves start to shimmer slightly, their color shifting to match vegetation I have seen on high-gravity worlds. The bark texture alters, becoming more flexible, more resistant-looking. I am not changing the tree, Maya explains. I am changing the atmospheric pressure and composition around the tree, creating conditions similar to its evolutionary origin world. The plant responds by expressing genetic traits adapted to those conditions. Evolutionary origin world? Brack asks weakly. Most plants and animals carry genetic memory of their species' atmospheric preferences. Usually, these traits remain dormant because current atmospheric conditions do not trigger their expression. But if you can recreate the right atmospheric environment, the tree is now definitely different. Stronger looking, more resilient, with leaves that seem designed for high pressure, high oxygen environments. You can temporarily activate evolutionary adaptations. I finish. You are not just manipulating atmosphere. You are using atmospheric manipulation to trigger biological responses. Now you are beginning to understand, Maya says, capping the cylinder. Atmospheric conditions do not just affect how things move or how clearly you can see. They affect how living beings function at the most fundamental biological level. The implications hit me like a physical blow. If humans can use atmospheric manipulation to trigger evolutionary responses in plants and animals, if they can temporarily activate genetic adaptations by recreating ancestral atmospheric conditions, you can do this to enemy soldiers. I realize you can create atmospheric conditions that trigger negative evolutionary responses. Make them weaker, slower, less adapted to current environmental conditions. That is one application, Maya confirms. But there are others, more interesting ones. She selects a different cylinder from her belt. This one marked with small symbols. I do not recognize. This contains atmospheric samples from a planet where the local fauna developed enhanced sensory capabilities to survive in low visibility conditions. Very useful for reconnaissance work. Maya uncaps the cylinder and breathes deeply from it. For a moment, nothing visible happens. Then her eyes begin to change, the pupils dilating far beyond what should be physically possible for human anatomy. Atmospheric conditions affect neurological development, she continues, her voice now carrying an odd harmonic quality. Expose the human nervous system to the right atmospheric composition, and you can temporarily activate dormant genetic pathways, enhanced vision, improved reflexes, heightened sensory awareness. She is looking directly at our observation pod now, and I have the uncomfortable feeling that she can see far more than our equipment should allow. Her gaze seems to penetrate through our stealth systems like they do not exist. This is how humans have been so successful in such diverse planetary environments, Brack whispers. They are not just adapting to atmospheric conditions. They are using atmospheric manipulation to activate biological capabilities suited to each environment. Exactly, Maya says, apparently having heard his whisper from several meters away through our supposedly soundproof observation pod. Why struggle against hostile atmospheric conditions when you can temporarily become something designed to thrive in those conditions? She caps the cylinder, and her eyes gradually return to normal human appearance. Of course, atmospheric manipulation is not just about biological enhancement. There are more creative applications. A new sound reaches us from the direction of the human observation post. Captain Morrison's voice, urgent and concerned. Korr, we have incoming transmission from Firebase Central, priority alpha message. Maya nods toward our position. Excuse me for a moment, gentlemen. Duty calls. She walks back to the human position with casual confidence, leaving Brake and me staring at each other in stunned silence. Did she just demonstrate biological atmospheric manipulation? Brake asks. Did we just watch a human temporarily alter her own sensory capabilities by breathing different air? I think so. But more importantly, did you notice that she never answered my question about how many humans have these abilities? You think there are others? I think Maya Korr represents something much larger than a single enhanced soldier. I think we are looking at evidence of systematic human atmospheric adaptation, possibly species-wide. Our communication system chimes with an incoming priority message from Hegemony Command. Observation Team 77. This is Command. We have received similar reports from 12 other observation teams monitoring human military activities. Atmospheric manipulation appears to be widespread among human forces. Request immediate detailed analysis of capabilities and limitations. 12 other teams. 12 other Maya Korrs, or at least humans with similar abilities. The scope of human atmospheric adaptation is far larger than we initially realized. Command, this is 7-7. Atmospheric manipulation capabilities appear to include biological enhancement, environmental modification, and tactical weather control. Subject demonstrates ability to trigger evolutionary responses in local flora and temporary sensory enhancement in herself. Recommend immediate strategic reassessment of human military capabilities. Acknowledged. 7-7. Continue observation. Priority Alpha intelligence gathering. Do not engage under any circumstances. The communication terminates just as Maya returns from the human command post. Her expression has changed from casual friendliness to something more serious. Gentlemen, we have a problem, she announces. And I am afraid it involves both of our species. What kind of problem? I ask, abandoning any pretense that we are not listening. The kind that makes our current conflict look like a minor disagreement between friends, Maya replies. According to Firebase Central, long-range sensors have detected incoming ships. Big ones, moving fast, and they are not broadcasting any identification codes that anyone recognizes. Brack leans forward. Unknown vessels? In this system? Unknown everything, Maya confirms. Unknown ship designs, unknown propulsion signatures, unknown energy emissions. The only thing we know for certain is that they are heading directly for this planet, and they will arrive in approximately 18 hours. The implications sink in slowly. An unknown fleet approaching during an active combat zone can only mean one thing: a third party is about to enter the conflict between humans and the hegemony. Someone with enough firepower and confidence to ignore the ongoing war and approach an actively contested system. First contact scenario? I suggest hopefully. Maya shakes her head. Preliminary analysis suggests military configuration. These are not exploration vessels or diplomatic ships. These are warships, and they are coming in fast and quiet. Invasion fleet, Break states grimly. That is the working assumption. Which means human forces and hegemony forces are about to face a common enemy. Someone with technology and capabilities we know nothing about. She walks closer to our observation pod. Her expression thoughtful. Here is the thing though. Unknown atmospheric requirements. Unknown biological needs. Unknown environmental preferences. Whatever these newcomers are, they are going to have to operate in atmospheric conditions they did not evolve for. And that gives you an advantage. I realize. That gives all of us an advantage. If we work together, Maya corrects. Atmospheric manipulation works on any biological system that requires gas exchange for survival. It does not matter what planet they evolved on or what kind of atmosphere they prefer. If they breathe, I can affect how they breathe. The suggestion hangs in the air like one of Maya's atmospheric modifications. Cooperation between human forces and hegemony forces against an unknown third party. An alliance based on atmospheric warfare capabilities. You are proposing joint operations, Breck says slowly. I am proposing survival, Maya replies. Whatever is coming our way, it has enough confidence to approach a contested system during active hostilities. That suggests either overwhelming technological superiority or complete ignorance of local conditions. Either way, divided forces will be easier targets than coordinated ones. Our communication system activates without any input from us. Maya's voice comes through our speakers with perfect clarity, despite the fact that she is standing several meters away and speaking at normal conversational volume. Command, this is Maya Korr, Human Atmospheric Specialist currently under observation by Hegemony Surveillance Team 77. I am transmitting on Hegemony military frequencies to propose immediate tactical cooperation regarding incoming unknown fleet. How did you... Break begins. Atmospheric acoustic manipulation, Maya explains calmly. Sound travels through air, and if you can control air movement and density, you can control how sound propagates, including directing it into specific electronic communication systems. Hegemony Command responds with obvious confusion. This is Command. Confirm identity of transmitting party and explain how you are accessing this frequency. My identity is confirmed by Observation Team 77. As for frequency access, atmospheric manipulation includes acoustic control. I can make air molecules carry sound to any destination I choose, including your communication receivers. This is impossible. Atmospheric manipulation cannot. With respect, Command, your current understanding of atmospheric manipulation appears to be based on outdated assumptions. I would like to suggest that we postpone theoretical discussions and focus on the incoming fleet. A longer pause follows before Command responds. Maya Korr, you are requesting cooperation between human and hegemony forces against unknown hostiles? I am requesting practical application of atmospheric warfare capabilities against entities with unknown atmospheric requirements. My techniques work regardless of target species' biological characteristics. Stand by. The communication goes silent, leaving us waiting for a response that could change the entire strategic balance of the war. They are considering it, Brack observes. They would be foolish not to, Maya replies. Unknown enemies require unknown countermeasures. Atmospheric manipulation provides options that conventional warfare cannot. But why offer cooperation? I ask. Human forces have been highly successful operating independently. Why risk sharing tactical advantages? Maya looks at me with an expression that makes me uncomfortable. Because this unknown fleet is not approaching at random. They chose this system, this time, this specific moment to make their appearance, which suggests they know about the ongoing conflict and decided that now is the perfect moment to intervene. You think they have been watching us, Brekka realizes, studying human and hegemony military capabilities. I think they have been waiting for the right moment to face weakened, divided forces rather than coordinated opposition. I think our unknown visitors are very smart, very patient, and very dangerous. The communication system activates again. Maya Korr, this is Hegemony Supreme Command. We are prepared to discuss limited tactical cooperation regarding atmospheric warfare applications against unknown hostiles. What are your capabilities and requirements? Maya smiles, and for the first time since this conversation began, the expression looks genuinely pleased rather than predatory. Supreme Command, I have access to atmospheric samples from 47 different planetary environments, including several with atmospheric compositions that are toxic to most known biological systems. I can create localized weather systems, manipulate air pressure and density, control gas distribution and composition, and trigger evolutionary responses in biological targets. And your requirements. Access to hegemony atmospheric analysis data for the incoming fleet, coordination with hegemony forces to prevent friendly fire incidents, and permission to demonstrate advanced atmospheric manipulation techniques that may be classified as weapons of mass destruction under current galactic warfare conventions. Several seconds of silence follow this last statement. Clarify weapons of mass destruction, Maya Korr. Maya reaches for one of the unused cylinders on her belt, this one marked with symbols that look like warning labels. I have atmospheric samples from a planet where the local atmosphere undergoes periodic composition shifts that are lethal to most forms of life. Volcanic atmospheric events, toxic gas clouds, oxygen displacement phenomena. Very useful for area denial operations. You can create poisonous atmosphere, I ask. Despite myself. I can create atmosphere that is hostile to specific biological systems while remaining harmless to others. Targeted atmospheric warfare based on species-specific respiratory requirements. The implications are staggering. If Maya can create atmospheric conditions that are lethal to some species while harmless to others, if she can weaponize air composition at the molecular level, that is not atmospheric manipulation, Brack whispers. That is atmospheric warfare on a planetary scale, which is exactly what we might need against an unknown invasion fleet, Maya points out. Conventional weapons require knowing your enemy's defensive capabilities. Atmospheric warfare requires only knowing that your enemy needs to breathe. Supreme Command responds. Maya Korr, Hegemony Command authorizes limited tactical cooperation. Transmit your atmospheric analysis requirements and coordinate with local hegemony forces for joint operations planning. Acknowledged. Supreme Command. Atmospheric warfare operations will commence upon enemy fleet arrival. Estimated time to contact 17 hours 37 minutes. Maya caps the cylinder she had been holding and looks toward our observation pod with satisfaction. Gentlemen, I suggest you contact your superiors and request permission to participate in what may be the first large-scale atmospheric warfare engagement in galactic history. This is going to be educational for everyone involved. You really think your atmospheric manipulation can stop an entire invasion fleet? I ask. I think atmospheric manipulation can stop anything that requires gas exchange for survival, Maya replies. And if our unknown visitors turn out to be mechanical or energy-based entities that do not require atmospheric support, then we will learn something very important about the future of warfare in this galaxy. She starts walking back toward the human command post, then pauses and turns back toward us. Oh, and gentlemen, you might want to inform your observation teams on the other 11 worlds that they are about to witness coordinated atmospheric warfare demonstrations. This operation is going to be significantly larger than anything humans have attempted before. Other worlds? Drake asks. You mean? I mean human atmospheric specialists are positioned throughout this entire system, and we have been coordinating our capabilities for quite some time. Maya Korr is not unique. Maya Korr is part of a network. She continues walking toward the human position, leaving us with the realization that everything we thought we understood about human atmospheric manipulation capabilities represents only a fraction of their actual strategic implementation. Breck, I say quietly, I think we need to revise our assessment of human military capabilities one more time. How do you revise an assessment when you discover that your entire understanding of the subject was fundamentally incomplete? It is a good question. How do you evaluate capabilities that appear to violate basic physical laws? How do you plan defenses against weapons that can turn the air itself into a tactical advantage? And how do you cooperate with allies whose abilities you cannot understand against enemies whose intentions you cannot predict? Observation Team 77. Comes Maya's voice through our communications system again. You are about to get a front-row seat to the first interspecies atmospheric warfare cooperation in galactic history. I suggest you prepare your recording equipment. This is going to be something worth documenting. Through our observation equipment, I watch Maya rejoin the human soldiers and begin what appears to be intensive mission planning. Captain Morrison spreads tactical displays while other soldiers check equipment and prepare defensive positions. But Maya does something different. She arranges her atmospheric manipulation cylinders in complex patterns. Like someone preparing ingredients for an elaborate recipe, each container is positioned with careful precision, creating geometric arrangements that suggest sophisticated planning and coordination. She is not preparing for a battle. I realize. She is preparing for a performance. A demonstration of what coordinated atmospheric warfare looks like when applied at planetary scale. And we are about to see whether human atmospheric manipulation represents the future of warfare, or just an interesting footnote in military history, Brack adds. Maya looks up from her preparations and waves cheerfully in our direction. 17 hours until the unknown fleet arrives. 17 hours to discover whether atmospheric warfare can change the balance of power in galactic conflict. 17 hours to find out if Maya Korr and her atmospheric manipulation network represent evolution or revolution in military science. I have a feeling that by tomorrow either everything we know about warfare will have changed, or everything we know about survival will have become much simpler. Either way, it is going to be one hell of a show. You know what I learned about humans during the next 17 hours? They have absolutely no concept of reasonable escalation. While Breck and I spent the time frantically coordinating with Hegemony Command and trying to understand the tactical implications of atmospheric warfare cooperation, Maya Korr transformed the entire planetary system into what can only be described as a weaponized weather machine. Atmospheric coordination network is fully active. Maya reports to Captain Morrison as the countdown reaches its final hour. 43 specialists across 12 worlds, each positioned at optimal atmospheric manipulation points. We have complete coverage of every major atmospheric body in the system. 43 specialists. 12 worlds. Maya was not exaggerating when she mentioned a network. What does that mean in practical terms? Morrison asks. Maya grins, and the expression makes me deeply uncomfortable. It means we can turn the entire system into a hostile environment for anything that was not born here. And if that does not work, we can get creative. Through our observation equipment, I watch her make final adjustments to what she calls her atmospheric coordination array. The geometric pattern of cylinders has expanded into something that looks more like a scientific instrument than military equipment. Each container is connected to the others by thin tubes that pulse with different colored gases. She has been building something, Brack observes. All this time while we thought she was just carrying individual atmospheric weapons, she was actually carrying components for a larger system. A system designed to do what? I ask, though I suspect I do not want to know the answer. Long-range atmospheric manipulation, Maya replies, apparently having overheard our conversation again. Individual cylinders are useful for local tactical applications. But when you need to affect atmospheric conditions across interplanetary distances, you need something with more range. She activates her coordination array, and immediately our sensors begin detecting atmospheric anomalies throughout the entire system. Pressure variations on distant worlds, temperature fluctuations in space-based installations, even measurable changes in the atmospheric composition of gas giant outer layers. That is impossible, I breathe. Atmospheric manipulation across interplanetary distances requires energy expenditures equivalent to stellar engineering projects. You cannot possibly generate that kind of power with portable equipment. You are still thinking about this wrong, Maya says patiently. I am not generating power. I am redirecting power that already exists. Every planetary atmosphere contains enormous amounts of kinetic and thermal energy. I just suggest new ways for that energy to express itself. As if to demonstrate, she makes a small adjustment to one of her cylinders. Our sensors immediately detect a pressure wave propagating outward from the planet at velocities that suggest atmospheric manipulation on a scale that defies comprehension. Contact, Morrison shouts. Unknown fleet dropping out of hyperspace. Range outer system. Bearing 270 relative to planetary north. Through our enhanced optics, the unknown vessels resolve into view. Massive ships, each one easily twice the size of the largest hegemony dreadnoughts. Their design is unlike anything in our databases. Flowing, organic curves that seem to shift and change as we watch. No visible weapons, no detectable shield generators, no recognizable propulsion systems. Visual confirmation on fleet composition, Korr reports. 12 capital ships, estimated crew complement, impossible to determine. Ship design does not match any known architectural patterns. Maya studies the incoming vessels through a pair of simple optical binoculars. Her expression thoughtful. Interesting. Organic ship design, minimal technological signatures, propulsion system based on… Oh, that is clever. What? Morrison demands. They are not using conventional propulsion. They are using atmospheric manipulation for space travel. Those ships are essentially flying by manipulating the interplanetary medium, using trace gases and solar wind as propulsion mass. The implications hit me like a physical blow. If the unknown fleet uses atmospheric manipulation for space travel, then they have developed the same capabilities as Maya's network. Possibly more advanced versions. They are like you, I realize. Atmospheric manipulators. No, Maya says, her voice suddenly sharp with concern. They are not like us at all. Watch their approach pattern. The unknown ships are moving through the system in formation, but their path shows no consideration for gravitational mechanics or orbital dynamics. Instead, they appear to be following atmospheric density gradients, moving from one concentration of interplanetary gas to another like predators following scent trails. They are not manipulating atmosphere for tactical advantage, Maya continues. They are consuming it. Those ships are feeding on atmospheric resources. Feeding? Brack asks weakly. Atmospheric consumption. They are literally eating the air as they travel, converting atmospheric mass into energy or ship resources. That is why their ship design looks organic, because it probably is organic. The lead unknown vessel suddenly changes course, heading directly toward our planet with alarming speed. Our sensors detect massive atmospheric displacement as the ship approaches, creating pressure waves that propagate through the planetary atmosphere like ripples in water. They are not here to invade, Maya says grimly. They are here to harvest. They want our atmospheric resources, and they do not care what happens to anyone who needs those resources to survive. Atmospheric predators, Morrison states. How do we fight something like that? Maya looks at her coordination array, then at the incoming fleet, then back at Morrison with an expression that somehow manages to be both confident and slightly insane. We give them indigestion. She activates her coordination network at maximum power. Immediately, atmospheric conditions throughout the entire system begin to change in ways that make our sensors scream warnings about impossible readings. On distant worlds, atmospheric pressure begins fluctuating in complex patterns. Gas giant atmospheric layers start rotating in directions opposite to planetary rotation. Even the trace atmospheric particles in interplanetary space begin moving in coordinated formations that spell out geometric patterns visible from orbital distances. What are you doing? I demand. Coordinated atmospheric warfare, Maya replies. 43 specialists, each one manipulating local atmospheric conditions in precise synchronization. We are turning the entire system into a single unified atmospheric weapon. The unknown ships notice the changes immediately. Their smooth approach becomes erratic as they encounter atmospheric conditions that shift and change faster than their consumption systems can adapt. The lead vessel suddenly veers off course, apparently struggling to navigate through air that refuses to behave according to normal physical laws. Target response confirmed, Maya reports. They are having difficulty processing rapidly changing atmospheric composition. Recommendation: increase complexity of atmospheric modifications. She makes adjustments to her array and the atmospheric chaos intensifies. Our sensors detect pressure waves propagating between worlds, temperature differentials that create interplanetary weather systems, and gas composition changes that turn normal atmospheric breathing into a complex chemical equation. The unknown fleet responds by accelerating toward the planet, apparently attempting to reach stable atmospheric resources before their ships suffer serious damage from consuming inconsistent atmospheric compositions. They are coming in fast, Torres warns. Estimated time to atmospheric entry: 14 minutes. Perfect, Maya says. That gives me just enough time to demonstrate why eating our air is a very bad idea. She selects one of her unused cylinders. This one marked with symbols that look like biohazard warnings. This contains atmospheric samples from a world where the local atmosphere is saturated with airborne microorganisms that are extremely hostile to non-native biological systems, very effective against organic ships. Maya uncaps the cylinder and connects it to her coordination array. The biohazard atmosphere begins flowing through the network, spreading outward from the planet in expanding spheres of what looks like ordinary air but registers on our sensors as something far more dangerous. Biological atmospheric warfare, Brack whispers. She is weaponizing microorganisms, not weaponizing, Maya corrects. Teaching. I am teaching our local atmospheric microorganisms to behave like much more aggressive versions of themselves. The biohazard atmosphere reaches the unknown fleet just as the ships enter the outer edges of planetary atmosphere. The effect is immediate and dramatic. The organic ship hulls begin to change color, their smooth surfaces developing what looks like corrosion or infection. The vessel's smooth flight patterns become increasingly erratic as their organic systems struggle to process air that has become actively hostile to their biological functions. Target fleet showing signs of atmospheric distress, Morrison reports. Multiple ships altering course, attempting to retreat to higher altitudes. But Maya is not finished. She activates a second cylinder, this one containing what she describes as pressure differential samples from a gas giant Korr interface. The atmospheric pressure around the unknown ships begins fluctuating between near-vacuum conditions and crushing high-pressure environments with frequency measured in seconds. Atmospheric torture, I realize. She is creating conditions where they cannot establish stable life support or consumption patterns. Educational feedback, Maya corrects cheerfully. I am teaching them that our atmospheric resources come with very specific usage requirements. The unknown fleet attempts to coordinate a response, but their organic ship systems appear to be overwhelmed by atmospheric conditions that change faster than biological adaptation can accommodate. Several vessels attempt to flee the system entirely, but Maya's network extends their atmospheric modifications into interplanetary space, creating zones of hostile air that follow the retreating ships like pursuing predators. Unknown fleet is transmitting on multiple frequencies, Torres reports, attempting to establish communication. Put them through, Morrison orders. The voice that emerges from our communication systems is unlike anything I have ever heard. Harmonics layered upon harmonics, like multiple beings speaking in perfect synchronization, with undertones that suggest vocal cords designed for atmospheric conditions very different from anything in our experience. Atmospheric manipulators of this system, the voice says, each word carefully formed as if the speakers are struggling with unfamiliar linguistic concepts. We acknowledge your territorial claims to atmospheric resources. Maya responds by increasing the intensity of her atmospheric modifications. The unknown ships visibly struggle to maintain stable flight as the air around them becomes increasingly hostile. We request permission to negotiate atmospheric usage agreements. The voice continues, now with obvious distress harmonics. Interesting, Maya observes. They are not invaders. They are not invaders. They are atmospheric refugees. Their ships are organic because they have evolved beyond technological dependence. But that makes them completely dependent on finding suitable atmospheric resources to survive. She reduces the intensity of her atmospheric warfare demonstration, creating a bubble of stable air around the unknown fleet. The ships immediately stabilize, their organic hulls visibly relaxing as they encounter breathable atmospheric conditions. This is Maya Korr, human atmospheric specialist, speaking for the combined human and hegemony forces in this system, she announces. State your intentions regarding local atmospheric resources. We are the symbiosis. The voice replies. Our ships require atmospheric consumption for survival. We seek only sufficient resources to continue our migration. Migration to where? Morrison asks. To regions of space with abundant atmospheric bodies. Our previous territories have become unsuitable for atmospheric life. Maya exchanges glances with Morrison, then looks toward our observation position. Gentlemen, I think we have encountered something unprecedented, a spacefaring species that has evolved complete dependence on atmospheric resources, forced to migrate because their home territories no longer provide suitable atmospheric conditions. Atmospheric nomads, I whisper. Exactly. And they probably assumed that a system with active atmospheric warfare would have abundant atmospheric resources to spare. They did not realize they were entering a zone where atmospheric manipulation is used as a military tool. The lead symbiosis vessel transmits again. We did not understand that atmospheric manipulation was territorial defense mechanism. We apologize for intrusion without permission. Maya makes careful adjustments to her coordination array, creating stable atmospheric corridors that lead away from inhabited worlds toward the outer system gas giants. Symbiosis Fleet, you are authorized to harvest atmospheric resources from uninhabited gas giant outer layers. These atmospheric bodies are not required for biological life support and can sustain limited consumption without affecting local ecosystem stability. This is acceptable. We express gratitude for atmospheric hospitality. The unknown fleet changes course toward the designated gas giants, moving with obvious relief through Maya's carefully maintained atmospheric corridors. Just like that? Morrison asks. We went from preparing for interspecies warfare to hosting atmospheric refugees? Sometimes, Maya replies, the best way to win a war is to realize you are not actually fighting one. She begins powering down her coordination array, returning atmospheric conditions throughout the system to normal parameters. The process takes nearly an hour, during which the Symbiosis Fleet establishes harvesting operations around the outer gas giants with remarkable efficiency. Observation Team 7-7, Maya calls toward our position. I trust this demonstration has been educational regarding human atmospheric manipulation capabilities. Educational, I repeat weakly. You just prevented an interspecies war by turning the entire system into a single atmospheric weapon, then converted potential enemies into refugees, then negotiated a resource-sharing agreement that solved everyone's problems simultaneously. Standard atmospheric diplomacy, Maya says with a shrug. When you can control the air itself, most conflicts become negotiations about breathing rights. Brake and I stare at each other in stunned silence. Everything we thought we understood about warfare, diplomacy, and interspecies relations has been redefined in the space of a few hours. The implications, I begin, are staggering, Brake finishes. If humans can prevent wars by demonstrating overwhelming atmospheric superiority, then resolve conflicts through atmospheric resource management, then traditional concepts of military conquest become obsolete. I realize. Why fight for territory when you can simply make the atmosphere uninhabitable for enemies and comfortable for allies? Maya packs away her coordination array with practiced efficiency, returning the complex atmospheric weapon to its innocent appearance as a collection of simple cylinders on a utility belt. There is one more thing you should know, she says, walking closer to our observation position. The atmospheric manipulation network you witnessed today. It represents our basic training level. What you saw was the equivalent of a military training exercise. Basic training? I ask faintly. Maya Korr is a specialist in atmospheric warfare applications. But there are human atmospheric specialists in environmental modification, biological enhancement, interplanetary terraforming, and stellar atmospheric engineering. What you witnessed today was not our most advanced capability. It was our most diplomatic one. She stands directly in front of our concealed observation pod, smiling with an expression that somehow manages to be both friendly and absolutely terrifying. I suggest you inform Hegemony Command that future military planning should consider atmospheric warfare capabilities when evaluating human strategic options. Traditional concepts of siege warfare, environmental denial, and territorial control become very different when one side can simply change what it means to breathe. Our communications system activates with a priority message from Hegemony Supreme Command, Observation Team 77, transmit complete tactical analysis of observed atmospheric warfare capabilities. Priority Alpha classification. Full strategic reassessment required immediately. Command, I respond. Recommend immediate revision of all military doctrine regarding human engagement. Atmospheric manipulation capabilities exceed previous estimates by several orders of magnitude. Traditional warfare concepts may be obsolete when applied to human forces. Acknowledged. 7-7. Stand by for new mission parameters. Maya nods with satisfaction. Gentlemen, it has been a pleasure demonstrating atmospheric warfare applications for your analysis. I hope this experience will contribute to more informed diplomatic relations between our species. She starts walking back toward the human command post, then pauses and turns back one final time. Oh, and if you encounter any other atmospheric manipulation species during your travels, please feel free to refer them to our network. We are always interested in sharing techniques with fellow atmospheric specialists. Other species. Drake asks. Did you think humans were the only ones to develop atmospheric manipulation capabilities? The galaxy is full of atmospheric specialists. We just happen to be particularly good at the military applications. She walks away, leaving us with the realization that atmospheric warfare may be far more common throughout the galaxy than anyone previously suspected. Rake, I say quietly, I think we need to completely reimagine our understanding of how interspecies conflicts work. You mean how they do not work when one side can turn breathing into a tactical disadvantage? Exactly. Maya Korr just demonstrated that atmospheric manipulation is not just a military capability. It is a diplomatic tool, a conflict resolution method, and a form of interspecies communication all rolled into one. Through our observation equipment, I watched the human forces establish their permanent observation post with casual efficiency. The crisis that should have resulted in massive interspecies warfare has been resolved through atmospheric diplomacy, leaving everyone involved with better understanding of their respective capabilities and limitations. The Symbiosis fleet continues their atmospheric harvesting operations around the outer gas giants, apparently thriving in the resource-rich environment Maya provided for them. Hegemony Command begins revising strategic assessments to account for human atmospheric warfare capabilities, and Maya Korr returns to routine military duties as if she has not just redefined what atmospheric warfare looks like on an interplanetary scale. Final assessment, I announced to Brack. Human atmospheric manipulation capabilities represent a fundamental shift in the nature of warfare, diplomacy, and interspecies relations. Traditional military doctrine requires complete revision when applied to forces capable of weaponizing atmospheric conditions. Agreed. But here is what really concerns me. If Maya Korr represents basic training-level atmospheric manipulation, what do their advanced specialists look like? What can human atmospheric warfare experts do when they stop being diplomatic? It is a good question, and I am not sure I want to know the answer. But one thing has become absolutely clear. The galaxy contains atmospheric warfare capabilities that exceed anything the hegemony previously imagined. And humans have mastered those capabilities with terrifying efficiency. You know what the strangest part is? I tell Brake. What? Maya Korr was right from the beginning. She really was too weak to fight using conventional methods. So she learned to make the air fight for her instead. And in doing so, she developed capabilities that make conventional fighting obsolete. The weakest human soldier becomes the most powerful by refusing to fight the way everyone else fights. Exactly. And now everyone else has to learn new rules for what fighting actually means. Through our communication system, Maya's voice reaches us one final time. Safe travels, gentlemen. And remember, when you control the air itself, every breath becomes a tactical advantage. Our observation mission is complete. We have gathered intelligence that will reshape hegemony understanding of human military capabilities, witnessed the emergence of atmospheric warfare as a diplomatic tool, and learned that the galaxy contains forms of conflict resolution that make traditional warfare look primitive by comparison. Most importantly, we have discovered that sometimes the most effective way to win a war is to demonstrate that you do not need to fight it at all. Maya Korr was too weak to fight using conventional methods, so she made the air fight for her instead, and in doing so she changed everything.